Welcome to the Bay Area Business Podcast with Joseph Blackman. Twice a week, we highlight the people behind the businesses in the San Francisco Bay Area. Take your next step to success while being inspired by the journeys of others. Be great, be unforgettable, and be you. Put a big smile on your face as we begin the show in 3, 2, 1.
All right, welcome to the Bay Area Business Podcast. I have here Edi Birsan. Edi is the CEO, owner, president, the man in charge at EDI Inc. So, Edi, tell us what EDI Inc. is, how long you've been in business, what it's about, and how you add value to the world.
Okay, EDI is a small business. We're in the container business. We provide inspections and certifications of containers for international cargo. These are the 20-foot and 40-foot containers, as well as their related equipment such as chassis or specialized equipment tank containers. We've been in business for 28 years. We started out as myself and my business partner, two of us, and 28 years later, it's still the two of us. In between, we've gone up to 1.5 employees directly in the EDI.
1.5 employees?
Yes, we had a part-timer and one other person. And we have now gone back to our original form. When we first started, we did container inspections. We did buying and selling of cargo containers. And we did leasing of equipment of containers to construction sites or elsewhere. In the process of the 28 years, at one point we had 300 containers rated for ammunition and explosives.
Nice. That
we used through the Concord Naval Weapons Station. And we had a bunch of military contracts to provide those containers. We also had a large fleet of a couple of hundred units, large for a two-person operation. And we provided them to construction sites, housings, etc., all through Northern California. About 12 years ago, actually more now, 14 years ago, we simplified the business to concentrate just on container inspections and certifications.
All right, so if go into more of what a container is. We know what containers are.
Containers are the ones, the intermodal containers are 20-foot, classically 20-foot or 40-foot size containers that go on ships, planes, and backs of trucks.
And there's some 54-footers.
There's some 54-footers, there's some 45s, specialized equipment. But the bulk of the equipment worldwide are 20-foot and 40-foot. They're 8-foot wide. They are either 8'6" or 9'6" high. This was a intermodal revolution in transportation that came to being in the late 50s and really took off in the late 60s.
Vietnam?
No. Nothing to do with Vietnam.
Well, no, that's when they started taking the supplies over.
That's the military side, but it's commercial size. There are millions of containers in the world. It was an American innovation. It started right here in this country in the 50s.
McLean, right?
McLean on the East Coast with Sealand, and on the West Coast, almost simultaneously, with Matson. Going to Hawaii. Oddly enough, the two types of equipment that they started their standardization with was were both 8-foot wide, and on the East Coast it was a 35-footer, and on the West Coast it was a 23-footer. And they are the only ones who have ever used that size.
Yeah.
And so they very quickly settled to a 20-footer and a 40-footer. And then only in the 90s did they start bringing in domestic-sized equipment for the 45s and then now 54s. But those are principally limited to U.S. trade.
Okay. So what got you into this?
Well, back in 1973, I was looking for a job because I wanted to get married, and I was in a college PhD program in international politics. The Vietnam War was still cooking a bit, and I had spent 10 years trying to end it. And I knew I couldn't get a job in foreign service because of President Nixon. and the various other difficulties. So I was just looking for a job, and I came across a company called Interpol, not to be, and has been confused with the police department, the international police, but it's really the movement of containers between one pool of users to another pool. And I had to ignore the fact that I had a PhD, didn't put it down on, not a PhD classes, I didn't finish it. And my test was writing a business letter. And it blew them away that I sat down, typed up my own business letter, got it right the first time. I got hired on the spot.
Nice.
I entered as a clerk, making the sum of $145 a week.
Yes.
Got married 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, to my high school sweetheart.
Beautiful.
We had already been going out for 7 years. And in 6 months, I became an assistant manager. 6 months after that, I was a manager. Then contract coordinator. I went to Europe.
Nice.
Lived in Antwerp, Belgium for 6 months, and then England for 3.5 years. Came to the West Coast and wound up as assistant vice president. And because of office politics, we had to close down the West Coast office, and they were expecting me to move back east, and I declined and started my own business. Nice. So I've been in this industry 41 years.
41 good years.
41, well, some good years, some bad years.
That's going to lead into my next question. So give me a story of a failure or of a setback or of a road bump, a speed bump in your 42 years?
Well, 41 years.
41 years. Yeah, give us a story of a failure.
Okay. When I started my own company, we had one success after another. And it's like anything we did, we threw $50,000 at the project, and it came in great. I have a hobby, and this was back in the early 90s, where I was also a game designer and game player. I still am a game player.
Nice.
I had done this before I got before college. And so a game company that I was playing with, I lent them $50,000. Well, they weren't able to pay it back.
Uh-oh.
And so I wound up, in effect, they gave me their company. It had 11 employees. It had 400 customers. It had a game system that was making the transition from board gaming to playing by postally, by mail. And this was before the internet got cooking and before bulletin boards even got cooking. Mm-hmm. And when I wound up taking this company over, I didn't realize that what their accounting was not exactly what they said it was.
Oh, cooking the books.
They were cooking the books through incompetence, and I didn't catch it at first. And then after I took it over, then the operation, it became very clear within 90 days that this was basically certain amount of bad things were going on. Like they were paying their employees to net and kind of ignoring Uncle Sam.
No.
Yes. And so Uncle Sam got real mad at the previous guys. And at that point, I should have pulled out and said, okay, all right, take my $50,000 loss. And I didn't. And as a result, I got very determined that I was going to turn this business around, no matter what it took. Well, what it took was $250,000 in cash.
Yeah.
And I did turn it around and bring it up to a balanced situation. And we went through the transition from paper to bulletin board to internet. And I would say that you've heard of people being on the cutting edge of technology. We were on the bleeding edge of technology.
You already cut it. It's bleeding now.
Yeah, we were bleeding. And it got to the point, as Google and everything else was beginning, either I was going to have to put a lot more money into this, or I was going to have to end it, or bring it back down. And so I decided to bring it back down. But that whole episode was a failure, and it reminded me not to be so stubborn and to step back. And it was just a confluence of the fact that this was something I really, really loved. I loved game design. I loved gameplay. And the challenge was tremendous. And I should have just said, there's a point where you have to step back and be more of a businessman than emotionally involved.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. It's a good story. I'm sure a lot of people will be able to relate to peeling back the onion, and it starts to stink a little bit.
Right.
You got to either cut it loose or plow through it.
Sure.
What does the word competition mean to you?
Well, in the container business, competition means I had a very strange and sad example of competition. I had a customer who, when they first started their business, they're a worldwide survey company. They asked me to represent them on the West Coast, and I did. Mm-hmm. And their business started to grow worldwide. And the West Coast business was not so great. We were about $800 a year of business, maybe $1,000.
$800?
Gross revenue. Okay. But the point is, they had a man in this area. Mm-hmm. And sometimes we had a good year, we'd go up to $3,000 gross. Bad year, we're back down to $800. Mm-hmm. Well, at one point, during those 9 years, I basically had a monopoly here on the West Coast. Mm. I was the only one, and I kept the rates the same. Now, in comes someone else who decides, well, he can represent the other company, and he can do it at $2 an item less. So they would have saved a grand total of about $200. Uh-huh. And after 9 years, they turned around and said, well, your competition is 10% cheaper. Uh-oh. And I said, wait a minute, we're talking very small amounts of money. I've been here for 9 years with you, and we've been doing this for, at that point, 20 years. We're certified. Mm-hmm. This other person was not certified, came out of nowhere, and they were recruiting him and wanted me to train him. And I said no. Mm-hmm. And so there was a situation in which competition came in, and it resulted in the breaking of a long-term relationship for peanuts. And it reminded me that we really have to be careful with our competition, is that when you compete only on price, you lose the loyalty, you lose the expertise, and you lose the experience. Uh-huh. Now, they have, I believe, come to regret it, but they are stuck with it.
Yeah.
So competition is, I have no fear of competition on quality. I like that.
Yeah.
Competition on price, you see a crash to the lowest levels, and you see
it's a tailspin to the bottom.
It's a tailspin to the bottom of both quality and everything else.
Yeah.
And people have to remember that when you are focused on competition only on price, then you too can be replaced.
Yeah.
By price alone.
Somebody can price you out.
Right.
All right. So what is your plan for growth in the next year?
Absolutely none.
I usually ask, so do you want to grow?
Absolutely not.
Explain that. Why not?
Okay. Right now, we've been in business 28 years. Uh-huh. We made a decision to downsize our business scope on purpose back 12 years ago. Uh-huh. Right now, the business is at a level where I can do it 2 to 3 days a week.
Yeah.
I am, as noted, I'm an elected official now in the city council. Uh-huh. I'm actually putting 40 hours a week into city council business,
nice. Yeah.
Even though it doesn't pay much at all. But I need the time to be with the community. Yeah. I'm 64 years old, and I love my work. I enjoy going out with the containers and doing the certifications and taking care of my customers. But if the business, I am basically handling 90% of all the business in the survey side in the Bay Area.
90%.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good market share.
That is a great market share, but the problem is it's like 1905 and you have 90% of the stables and the car is coming on. Okay? So the survey business has a business itself has contracted, even though containerization has increased. It's sort of like one of the issues here, but it's at the right size for me right now. I'm quite happy to do this, and I'm able to see what I can do, and I'm concentrating my life elsewhere.
Okay, good stuff. So, what you said the car is coming on, and you have a whole bunch of.
Well, what it is in effect the industry is changing. The reason you have surveyors is to make sure that the quality of the containers are there when they get repaired and the reports are correct, and you have to certify that things are safe. The one portion of the business, which used to be very, very large, which is inspecting damaged equipment, what's happening with the consolidation of both steamship lines and leasing companies is that their own direct employees are doing it, or they are gotten to the point where the industry is much more professional, and so it needs a little less oversight, and that means less inspections. You also have people, because of the experiences now and the fact that the containers are built better, the people who are repairing them are better, the people who are maintaining control over them are better, that you have less need for an independent to be there to make sure everyone does their job. And so as a result, when I first got into this business in 1986, there were 10 survey companies, and there were 25 people doing what I do. And now the amount of equipment has probably quadrupled in the same period of time, but I'm the only one.
It's interesting.
Because we're not doing a higher, as many inspections as we did before, and because the consolidation of the steamship companies and the leasing companies have created their own employees, so they don't use an independent.
Isn't that kind of like a food inspector hiring or having its own inspector?
That's correct.
That's not right. That doesn't sound ethical, but I guess.
Well, it's not a matter of ethics. You got to remember, a food inspector is inspecting his own food. Here, you're inspecting equipment that you're leasing in. So you're inspecting your own asset.
Correct.
You're not going to eat your own food, in a factory.
Right?
But you are going to use your own equipment.
That makes sense. All right. So, what do you do to gain knowledge? Do you read?
Well, I gain knowledge in the business. Not only do I occasionally read issues, but because I am considered one of the old timers in the industry. I mean, this industry. The industry started in the late '60s, and I got involved in '73. I know a lot of people, and we talk, and we stay on top of what's happening, both technically and business-wise, and in some cases, I'm initiating the changes. I also attend conferences, and we have a large. With the shrinking of people, you get a more intense network. So you have. We are the mentors. We are the first and second generations. So there, in business, that's the kind of things that we do. Also, through things like the Rotary Club, and we're here at Concord Diablo Rotary, we have a lot of, in our social lives, we integrate a lot of business contacts. And so we're constantly getting speakers about business aspects or other things that relate to business.
That's nice. That's nice. We all should keep learning. Always keep learning.
Absolutely.
What does retirement look like to you?
It's non-existent.
We're entrepreneurs. We don't retire.
We don't retire. Nope. We die.
Death.
I expect to be working to the day I die.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't the container business, I mean, I've got that down.
City council.
City council, well, politics is a business. I can see it as a calling. I got into it for community reasons, and I'm 64. It's not like it's going to be a career, but I could see doing it for 10 years.
Yeah, nice. We talked about the City Council and Rotary. What are you going to do this year to give back?
Well, to give back. Well, I am the Community Service Director of my Rotary Club. I'm the President of the Friends of the Library.
Okay.
I'm on the boards of several nonprofits. I'm on the City Council. I head up the Community Service Park and Recreation Subcommittee, Standing Committee of the City Council. I volunteer at Caring Hands, doing transportation for seniors. I have the Picker Squadron, where we go out and we get fruit from people's houses and we bring them to the food banks. I volunteer at the park cleanups. I do work with the homeless. I'm on the homeless, what do they call it? The Interjurisdictional Homeless Center.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
You
Right.
do a lot.
Yeah.
You do a lot.
And there's more, but I can't remember all of them.
It's all right. Next question is, recommend one personal development book and one business book for our listeners.
This is going to sound very, very odd,
Okay.
but for large business, the best book to read is, of all things, a book called Imperialism by Lennon. Lennon denounced capitalism and explained all the ills of it.
Uh-huh.
In the process of writing the book, he actually created a pathway to explain why every business person should try to become a monopoly.
That sounds about right.
Yeah, but he was doing it as a communist, saying we got to tear it down. But if you read it, this is like a how-to book.
Yeah.
This is not so much a how-to, but a why book.
Yeah.
Of what this is why you want a monopoly.
Lennon.
And of course, because of the breakdown of the Soviet Union, all these guys over in Russia knew this book and they knew this plan, and they said this is great. So the Russian economy is run by a bunch of what they call oligarchs who have actually taken the concept of monopoly and just privatized it.
That's beautiful. I got to check that out.
It's a funny book. I mean, it's a denouncing book, and it's usually used as a Bible of the Marxists or whatever. But if you look at it the other way, it's one of the funnier books.
It can work for business.
Yeah, it works. It's telling you why you want a monopoly.
Yeah. Beautiful. All right, one personal development book.
Personal development book. Now, that would be kind of hard. Rather than a book,
Okay.
I would give you a game.
A game.
Yeah. The game is called Diplomacy. And that's the name of the game. It's available commercially. It's put out by Hasbro now. It's been out for over 60 years now. Well, 57 years. It's a game where you have 7 players, no dice, no cards, and it's based on Europe as it was in 1901. And you're maneuvering your pieces and you're negotiating with other players.
Okay.
And the development of that game as you play it gives you interaction with other people, teaches you how to speak within 3-minute periods. You learn how to be treacherous. You learn how to be true. You learn how to distinguish between the two. You learn that the most important things are what is your goals and what are the other people's goals. And you have to find out what their goals are.
How long does it take to play this game?
This game can be played anywhere from 4 to 7 hours, or it can go long. It is being played right now on the Internet. There are over 10,000 people playing it.
Wow.
There are international tournaments. There are local tournaments. But the important thing about the game is, in business, at the end of the day, when you want to do business with people, you're also competing with them, but sometimes you're also making alliances and working with them. And part of the whole thing is to understand the person that you're doing business with, what their goals are, what their personality is, what they value, what you value, and how to get what you want, and at the same time deal with everyone else. Because you can't take them all on alone.
Yeah.
1 against 6 doesn't work. Right? So you need to be able to manipulate the dynamics of the game, and you need to be able to inspire or follow, and sometimes you're shifting back and forth. You need to be able to learn within the course of the game how to play, of playing, and it's a very simple game. It only takes you 5 minutes to learn how to play this game.
Wow.
Again, the game is called Diplomacy, and it's the best interactive self-help that you can get.
Okay, nice. I'll have to check that out. So, how can we find more about you and what you do?
Well, you can put my name
Just type it
in Google. Edi is my first name. Birsan, Birsan, and I've got my own Wikipedia page that was set up for me. And I'm on Facebook. I've got 1,400 friends on Facebook. You can follow what I'm doing. And you can write me. I'm at Edi Birsan at astound.net.
Nice. So what did it feel like to be on Wikipedia when you found that out?
It was very strange at first because I didn't know much about Wikipedia. And then it was a big ego boost. Hey!
Rightly so.
Yeah. Famous people from Brooklyn, no less, which is where I'm from.
Brooklyn.
Yeah.
All right, so the last question. If you had a friend come into town and they're starving, where would you take them to get a bite to eat that best represents the Bay Area?
Fiore's. It's an Italian restaurant up on Clayton Road here in Concord. They have the best Italian food and Mediterranean flavor, and this is something which any starving person can end their condition right away.
End their condition. Well, thank you, Eddie. This ends our podcast. Just wanted to say you shared a lot of great things. I'm sure our listeners will get a lot from it. And I'll see you at the top.
Okay, thank you.
All right.